my two friends, usual suspects, Kurt Russell. Kurt, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Uh, I'm all right. I'm back from Florida after a week back in Ohio, so that kind of sucks, but I'm getting by. And John Rodriguez, Johnny, or Johnny Basketball, or J-Rod, or whatever people call you nowadays.
Yeah. All above.
Yeah, how you been?
Pretty good. Were you training to be an astronaut down in Florida?
I was, but they said I was too fat. I was too fat for the suit, so I had to come back.
Tough.
Yeah, I have to lose 80 pounds, they said, but I'll work on it. So yeah, but with that, we can get started on basketball. Well, I guess before that, let's talk about the Super Bowl, right? So this Sunday. So do you guys have any predictions on that? You guys following that pretty closely? What do you think?
Yeah, so I don't know. The media has all eaten up this whole Deflategate junk and everything, and that's been the main focus of the Super Bowl so far. It never hasn't really focused on the actual game and the matchups, but I'm sure like the 24 hours before they'll talk about that and everything. But I think it will be a pretty close game. I think it features the two best teams in the league, but yeah, I don't know, it's tough to pick one team, but I think the Seahawks are gonna win again. And my score prediction, I'd say 27-24. Be a close one.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Dang. Well, this is going to sound awkward when I get my prediction, which may also be 27, but then 23. And I have the Green Bay Packers beating the
Green Bay
Tampa Bay
Packers.
Buccaneers. Yeah, I think they're going to beat the Bucks this time around.
Oh, two NFC.
Yeah,
So
I
maybe-
know. All these different rules this year. It's crazy.
Wait,
But you
yeah.
also we forgot to address the more important game this weekend, which is the Puppy Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yes.
I've never actually seen any of it, but from what I've heard, it's a riveting game. A lot of action. So, Rahul, do you want to give me a quick thought on the Puppy Bowl? I'm sure you always watch. So
I
just
do.
like-
I do. Right after the Kardashians, I try to catch the Puppy Bowl. I record it. I think looking at the Puppy Bowl this year, I think there's a few good prospects for the Browns. Actually,
Receivers?
what's that?
Airbud? Receiver?
Maybe. I know we need a quarterback. So if we don't re-sign one of these guys, or if Manziel doesn't get his act together, I think Airbud could be a good quarterback for us. So yeah. Clearly, this is why we don't do a football blog. It's a struggle. As far as the actual Super Bowl, though, I'm actually going to go with the Patriots. I had Gronkowski on my fantasy team, and he's a beast. And I see him getting about 2 touchdowns. And I'm going to say the Patriots by 10, 24-14.
Wow.
Huh. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna place nuggies on this or not?
Let's play something else on it. What else can we place on it? How about a 6-pack? Because we're old.
A 6-pack of nuggies?
Yeah, a 6-pack of nuggies.
They even sell those?
they sell lots of things at McDonald's.
All right. If I lose, I'll buy. Well, I don't know how it's gonna work because Johnny and I picked the same team, but I will buy somebody a 6-pack of the worst beer. I'll buy Guinness.
Oh, that's sounds good. If I lose, I'll do the same.
All right.
All right. So basketball.
Yes, that sounds like a good idea.
All right, lead us into something, Kurt.
Okay. Well, As some of you may know, on this glorious Friday night, the Cavaliers are playing. Well, I guess it just finished. We're playing against the Sacramento Queens at home, which we came out on top, 101-90. And the 2 games before that, we played Portland and won by 5, and then we played in Detroit and won by 8. So, Johnny, any highlights to note from these past 3 games? Anything really stand out to you?
I think primarily I didn't have the chance to watch any of these, kind of just the highlights, but just the performance that Kyrie Irving put on against Portland, I guess. He had 28 points at half, and then he followed it up with another 27-point half. So he just showed that. I mean, he also made a Cavs record 11 threes. So he just showed that he can, take the offensive burden maybe when LeBron isn't firing on all cylinders or anything, or when Kevin Love is kind of playing like he has been. See that Kyrie can just he's definitely maturing as a player still, and still not at his peak game at all. Really, it seems like he's getting better each and every game, and it's good to see that. Some guys have random 50-point games like Corey Brewer and stuff, but
Mo Williams.
yeah, yeah, it's good to see that Kyrie was able to put together a really nice game for the Cavs when they needed him, and then to it helped continue that win streak that we're on, which has been really well, and then especially because it's against Portland, and that's a quality team, and Aldridge showed up for them too. He had 30 and 11, so that was good to see. Didn't really take too much from the Pistons game, another nice game. And then obviously tonight, was able to watch a little in the Kings game. Seems like we've been in the command most of the game, which is good to see as well. And Kevin Love actually putting up some decent numbers. So yeah, I think another good week from the Cavs, and something to build upon, and hopefully we can keep this win streak going in the next week. So yeah, Rahul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously that 55-point game was amazing. So it's clear that Kyrie Irving can play well without LeBron, but I think it's even nice to see that with LeBron, he's starting to click too. In that Pistons game, he had 38 points. People forget that because of that 55-point game, but he could be Player of the Week this week, so that's exciting. And then, we talked about in our last podcast the need to get Love going. So it's nice to see Love today. I think he had 23 and 10. So hopefully he can keep that up. But yeah, Cavs are rolling. There's not much more to say than that. We just got to keep it up. But it's great to see us finally winning, and looks like we're having fun. So, Kurt, what'd you think about that 55-point game?
It was a pretty pedestrian effort. Wasn't really terribly impressed by it. No, he looking at that box score is pretty interesting. He had 55, and then we had 3 other guys with 10, 11, and 12, and then 4, 3, and 4. So when you look at that, you think like, wow, how did that team score 100 points, but then one guy put the team on his back? So
yeah,
that's I didn't get a chance to watch either, but I did see the highlights, and it was pretty impressive to watch. And against Portland, I think the most important thing obviously was just that game-clinching 3 at the end, and then getting fouled at the last second to clinch it with free throws it's good to see. Everyone thinks of Damian Lillard as the clutch guy, and then Kyrie kind of showed him, how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And Lillard went 4 from 19 that game, so I'm not exactly sure who was guarding him, but if that was a lot of Kyrie, that would be awesome to see.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the game tonight since I didn't get to watch. I see that Boogie Cousins, on the night that he found out he was elected to the All-Star game as Kobe's replacement, went 5 for 17. Was that Mozgov playing good defense, or was that kind of a Boogie just not having a good game? Do either of you know?
Well, I watched the game, and yeah, Mozgov definitely had an effect. But I think I would say more than Mozgov, it was good team defense. Looks like the Cavs were pretty active today.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put on good team defense, and then plus I think once the Cavs kind of got off to a hot start, he just kind of had a tendency to start chucking,
Gotcha.
A little frustration here and there. I think he had a technical tonight as well, so not his best.
Boy.
Yeah. That he was going to try to keep it to 5 for the entire year, and he just hit 5 today.
Oh.
It's
got to be better than the last season, so at least he's improving.
He had 15 last season, I think, so.
Okay.
Not bad. Not bad. As far as that, sorry, just real quick. As far as the Kyrie game goes, can you guys think of any games, probably by LeBron in recent Cavs history that were more impressive than that game, or do you think that's one of the more impressive games? I don't know, J-Rod or Kurt, if you can think of anything. I don't know.
The game that I always think of is the game again. It was many years back against the Pistons in the playoffs when LeBron scored. What was it, 23 straight or 23 of 25 down the stretch in the clinching game in a series that we were definitely not supposed to win, and then obviously we got poo-pooed on by the Spurs in the finals. But that's probably the greatest game that I can think of in recent memory.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably put that game ahead of the Kyrie game just because of the stage that game was on compared to this one.
Yeah.
But anything to add, J-Rod?
Yeah, not really. I mean, it's different to see it actually live and actually see it happen and everything rather than just looking at it and looking at the highlights, I think.
Yeah.
So seeing that LeBron performance against the Pistons, I agree, was the sickest performance I've seen out of Cavalier in our time. So yeah.
Well, so we have a pretty busy week coming up as far as the Cavs schedule. We have a game tomorrow, the Saturday the 31st at Minnesota, then Monday against the 76ers at home, then the Clippers at home on Thursday, at Indiana on Friday, and at home versus the Lakers next Sunday, which of course is on ABC. Everyone wants to watch the Lakers play. So that looks like 5 games coming up in the next week. So, Johnny, from those 5 games, you want to give me a prediction and maybe talk about what the toughest game for us will be?
Yeah, so looking at these next 5 games, I think it's a good opportunity to continue our win streak and extend that to mid double digits, 14, 15 wins. We're on a 9-game winning streak now, so I think the Minnesota and Philadelphia games hopefully will be chances to play some bench players and get some rest for LeBron. I know he's not 100% right now with his wrist injury. I mean, he was able to play today, but I think it would be good for him to get some rest against those 2 teams and then come back for a bigger game on TNT Thursday night against the Clippers. We just played them, I think, last week, which is kind of weird because it's a Western team. We're also playing the Lakers again too. So I feel the Clippers game will be the toughest. They're actually playing pretty well, I guess. Recently, they've won 6 in a row, so I think that poses the biggest threat to our winning streak. And then at Indiana could actually be a tough game too. I think just their bigs and stuff. I don't know. Indiana's defense, I guess, too, can keep them in games sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this week, hopefully, we continue to roll, and I see us 5-0, maybe 4-1. So that's my take on these next 5 games for the week. 5 games in a week is a lot too, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Rahul, what do you think on these next slate of games?
Yeah, you pretty much said exactly what I was thinking. So, I mean, I'll keep it short. We're coming from already a busy schedule, and this upcoming week is really busy. So, I see us dropping one of these games at least. And I think you're right. The Clippers and the Pacers are going to be our toughest games because if you think about the two really highly televised games for the Cavs, they were the home opener against New York, which we lost, and
Bad.
then the Christmas game against Miami, which we lost.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, maybe we just weren't as good back then, and that's the only reason. But we seem to struggle still a little bit on the big stage. I think we just get overexcited or something. So I think the Clippers could be a potentially losable game. And then yeah, the Pacers, they're just kind of one of those grinded out kind of teams. And I feel like after playing, whatever it is, 3 games like in 4 or 5 days before that, it's tough to face a team like that and pull out a win, especially when you're on their arena. So um, I would say 4-1. I'd be pretty happy with. Kurt, anything to add?
No, pretty much. I would go again with. I'm gonna go with 3-2. Um, I looked at the Clippers schedule, and they also they play on Monday, and then their next game's not until Thursday against us. So I thought maybe if we had a couple of days extra rest, that would be an advantage for us. But they have the same rest, and then just the big game on TNT, be a lot of energy expended. I think the game at Indiana the next day, it'll probably be hard to get up for that one probably, especially considering their lack of talent. So I'll just go with 3-2.
Yeah.
I think we'll lose those 2 in a row, and then we'll come back and clobber Los Angeles on ABC. The Lakers, that is, not the Clips.
Plus, you can bet that the Clippers are going to want some revenge because I think our whole streak got started with the Lakers and then beating the Clippers in LA.
Yeah, it sure did.
So
That's true.
So he used to play for the Clippers for a little bit. He also played for the Cavs before, and now he plays for the Timberwolves.
Luke Walton.
Close.
Lou.
Close.
Mo Williams.
Mo Williams, exactly right. Mo Williams. So I don't know if you guys have been hearing these stories about Mo Williams potentially, or the Cavs potentially being interested in Mo Williams as a backup point guard for Kyrie Irving. We've talked a lot about this with Dellavedova maybe not being quite the answer at backup point guard. So what do you think about a potential Mo Williams reunion? J-Rod, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I like the move. Obviously, I actually in a column probably a few weeks ago, I highlighted the top 5, I think, former Cavaliers that were still in the NBA, and Mo Williams was one of them. So yeah, I wrote about him a little in that, and yeah, he was a favorite Cavalier of mine back when we made the playoffs last. So yeah, I feel he would be a great addition, and obviously an upgrade, like you said, to Dellavedova. And he's another veteran presence and someone who's been in the playoffs before. So, and he can obviously score, which helps too. He went off for what it was 55, like Kyrie.
Yeah,
You
52.
have two guards that can say they scored 55 this year. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think Mo Williams, that would be a nice pickup. I'm not sure like what we would have to give up for that, or like how that would work, is if Minnesota is planning on like releasing him, or like what they want in return. But I wouldn't imagine we would have to give up that much for him.
Yeah, I think that Minnesota was interested in some sort of pick. I'm not
Okay.
sure if we'd have to give up a first round pick or not, but if we're in win now mode, I don't know. That seems like I get a little overpaying for somebody, but we have to note that Mo is a former All-Star somehow. But yeah, he's obviously a big offensive upgrade. I'm pretty questionable about his defense. Dellavedova is playing because he's scrappy and he can hit open threes. So I'm not sure exactly how Mo would work in the defensive scheme. But if you put him out there with like Shumpert and Mozgov maybe, and like Tristan Thompson, guys that are gonna at least add a lot of energy and work really hard, maybe you can kind of blend him in so he doesn't stick out. He's kind of a little guy and he'll get bullied around. But I guess if he's going against second string point guards, he'll probably be fine. But yeah, that would be a really big offensive upgrade, the backup point guard. And that's something that we've talked about before. Is pretty much, we've talked about needing size. We got Mozgov. We talked about adding perimeter defender. We got Shumpert, and then kind of got J.R. Smith as what turned out to be a huge bonus so far. So this was kind of the last spot we needed to address. So if we can get Mo Williams, that's got to be one of the top guys available. I'd rather have him than, no offense to Nate Robinson, but I'd rather have him than Nate Robinson or one of those guys that. We don't really need another heat check guy. We already have J.R. Smith. Mo Williams will be fine, not hoisting a bunch of shots up, and he'll probably be pretty selfless on offense. So I think that'd be a really good fit for us, and I hope that we can get him.
Yeah, it's funny because last week we were talking about potential like candidates that could be like backup point guards for the Cavs, and we were throwing out names like Will Bynum. So Mo Williams sounds great to me, and he was also one of my favorite players when we had him. So I think I'd be happy with Mo Williams on our team. And then also this year he's averaging 6.4 assists per game, which is I think his highest of his career. So on a team with LeBron and J.R. Smith, Kevin Love, Kyrie, we need a guy like that who can dish it out a little bit, and apparently Mo Williams can do that now. So that's solid. As far as him and Dellavedova, they're basically complete opposites. So you can kind of pick and choose what kind of guard you need that night. If you need some offense, obviously you go to Mo Williams, but if you need more of a lockdown defensive type guard, not that Dellavedova was lockdown, but if you need a more defensive minded guard, he's the guy to go with. So yeah, I hope it happens, but we'll see. We'll see.
So since we touched on Mo's prowess as an all-star earlier,
yeah,
there was some news announced. The all-star reserves have been let out to the public. So J-Rod, I'm going to ask you some quick thoughts.
Yes.
I'd say biggest snub for each conference, the biggest surprise for each conference / I guess who you think is the least deserving of being elected an all-star. And, most importantly, we need a prediction for the game. Like, who's going to win? This is obviously a really important game, a lot of defense, a lot of effort. Will there be over 300 points scored? Just a few questions try to touch on for us.
Yeah, so I guess to start out, the snubs for the East. I see the East reserves. I think the coaches picked these reserves, and so I feel they did a pretty good job of selecting the right players for this. I like the recognition of three Hawks players, but the biggest snub I would say out of the East, I'd say I wouldn't have a definitive guy like, oh, he really got snubbed, but I
Yeah.
would, I would put Korver, Vucevic, and maybe Brandon Knight into that discussion. I feel those guys are having good years. I mean, Vucevic, probably no one really knows about him, and the Magic aren't a very good team, but he's putting up good numbers. And like the '04 Pistons almost, like the '04 Pistons had four guys in the All-Star game. And I think the Hawks could make that same argument with getting Korver in there, but I see the argument for guys like Bosch and Wade. So out of the guys, I guess least deserving in the East, out of the reserves that were picked, I would say it's tough. I'd say maybe Bosch or maybe Horford or Millsap. I don't know. I don't think they're like least deserving, but like maybe they're like I don't know. Yeah, I don't really have too much thought on that, I guess.
That's fair.
As far as the West, I think it's more clear that there were clearly snubs. It's a 12-man team, and regardless of who's going to get chosen, I feel that someone's going to be left out. So I think my toughest omission from that list would have been Damian Lillard. He has led Portland to the success they've had. He's been the main driver of that. He's actually the top scorer in the fourth quarter this year out of anyone in the league. And I feel he should have got the nod over Chris Paul, which I feel you guys would probably have the same thoughts on. Least deserving, I'd say maybe Chris Paul. I would probably lean towards Tim Duncan. His numbers aren't as great. I mean, he's Mr. Consistent. He's made 15 All-Star games, but I would have initially put probably Boogie Cousins over him in the reserves. I know Boogie got in later because of Kobe's injury, but I would have put him Boogie later maybe. And then maybe Duncan gets in regardless because of the Kobe injury, and he would have been the replacement, but I feel that way. And then I guess a quick prediction. Over under 300 points. I don't think it's gonna be over 300 points. That would take serious lack of defense and just like running up and down the court. Yeah, so I feel West wins this one. I think 132 to 128.
Wow, low scoring. All right.
Yeah.
Rahul, what you got for us?
Man, J-Rod and I are on the same page today because, again, I have pretty much the same thing. In the East, I guess I feel a little bit more strongly that Kyle Korver should have made the playoffs. He's shooting. The All-Star game.
You're good.
He's shooting 50, 50, and 90. That's got to be recognized, but just because he doesn't handle the ball as much as these other guys, or he doesn't have as high as a usage rate as a lot of the other All-Stars, then he doesn't get that respect I think he deserves. And I would have put him in over probably one of the Heat guys, either Bosch or Wade, because their team's this year. As far as the West, if it was me, originally I would have had it as Boogie Cousins and Damian Lillard over Chris Paul and Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan's going for 14 points and 10 rebounds a game. Isn't that impressive? It's all about the legacy, I think, for him. So I can understand it, but if we're talking about just merit based on this season, Tim Duncan should not be a star or an all-star. So as far as who wins, who knows? No one really tries too hard. So I'll go with the East. And I feel like LeBron hasn't won the MVP in some time, so let's say LeBron is the MVP and the East wins.
Bold. Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think? Am I right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much he's interested in trying to win that game.
Yeah.
But I would say, for me, Brandon Knight is the biggest snub. I like the Korver pick, but in an all-star game, it's just it's hard to have a spot-up shooter who does the duel. I mean, obviously he's very good at what he does, but his toolbox is pretty lacking. He maybe has a hammer. He's kind of missing a few other things to his game. So I think he's the biggest surprise, or the biggest snub, I should say. And as far as the least deserving, I tend to agree with Johnny that I think that the East I think that the right selections were made. I know you guys said Bosch and Wade. They're actually both, and Luol Deng, they're all shooting over 47% from the field. Wade's PER is like 22.6, and Bosch's is around 21.5. And the team's not doing that well, but they're really doing well, trying to make up for Mario Chalmers' below average play, which is very hard to do. As far as the West goes, I would probably say, this is interesting. Russell Westbrook, just because he hasn't played, he's missed a decent number of games, and same with Durant, I guess. I think it's interesting that they both made it. Obviously, they're very talented, but their team's not doing terribly well, and I think it's almost ridiculous that the Mavericks, and granted they're on a 4-game slide, but when the voting took place, they were probably 4th maybe. They don't get anybody on the team. I think Monta Ellis is deserving, so I would say he should be in over one of the Thunder players, which I'd probably have to pick. I don't know. I don't know which one I would take off, but yeah, I agree with Tim Duncan. 14 and 10. Like, he's having incredibly efficient defensive numbers. I think he might be one of the top 3 players in the league, maybe, defensive efficiency. But that's kind of a guy that you don't really care to see in the All-Star game. He's not really gonna, get on the end of an alley-oop or throw down a crazy dunk. He's probably gonna be content to play about 5 minutes and then not care about being in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that Boogie got added. I think that's necessary. And I think Lillard really got kind of screwed over because he's just, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of talented players, so it's hard. But, actually, I'm going to go with over 300 points. I was looking last season, the score was 163 to 155.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, which I had no idea. I thought it was around 140 each, but yeah, it was 138 to 135 with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Oh my God.
And then Kyrie kind of went off. He was the MVP last year, actually. I forgot about that. But yeah, so that's very interesting. And as far as who's going to win, the East is certainly less talented than the West. I think I'll take the West. Feel like aside from Duncan, they probably actually care about winning. The East, between Bosch, Wade, LeBron, Carmelo, there's no way any of those guys care at all about who wins the game. So I'll take the West. I'll go with a solid 167 to 157 score.
Nice.
So,
oh man.
Yeah.
Is that it?
There. Yeah. Keep that down for those of you guys who are going to bet on the game. That's money in the bank right there. So.
Oh no. We don't back any of your bets at Semih Pro, by the way.
Yeah, it's true. That's just something I said. It has no value behind it. And speaking of no value right now, somebody who has been riding the pine a lot, Dwight Howard, he has been struggling mightily to stay healthy this season. Johnny, how do you see the Rockets doing without Dwight on the floor?
I mean, it's tough. We talked last week in our broadcast about their lack of front court depth.
Wait, what are you talking about? They got Joey Dorsey.
Yeah, he's a viable replacement, I suppose. But, yeah, that's going to be tough in the West, especially. You go up against Memphis's bigs. You go up against Aldridge. You go up against Blake. You go up against Duncan. Every night you're going to be handed someone tough. And, Dwight, he's struggled with this knee, I guess his knee strain, something like that. He sat out 11 games actually earlier this season already.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of getting like a second opinion, I guess, on his knee. And if he's like playing on it now and everything, I'm sure it's only going to get worse unless he takes some time to rest and get better. So I guess it's possible that he perhaps misses some extended time. Which for Houston, they're currently the 5 seed in 32-14, and if it's 15, 20 games, I think Harden can carry them to some extent, but I feel the bigs down low on the other teams can dominate them. So I think they will slip a little bit into maybe the 6 or 7 seed. I think they'll miss his presence down low, and especially like his interior defense and stuff. So yeah, this could be interesting going forward and seeing how Dwight, how much he plays and how long he's going to be out for. But yeah, Rahul, what do you think this Howard injury, how it impacts the Rockets?
Well, the Rockets kind of remind me of like the Cavs of old, like when we had LeBron and like everybody else would kind of stand around a little bit. And I feel like with Houston, that's a lot of their offense is kind of just watching James Harden. So losing Dwight Howard definitely doesn't help. And yeah, I see them dropping too. I don't see how you can stay afloat in the West without one of your best players, especially if he's out for an extended amount of time. I'll say by the time this is all over, I see Houston as maybe a 6 or 7 seed, which would seem kind of low compared to where they were, but definitely doesn't help whether you like Dwight or not. Luckily, they have his lookalike on the bench. I'm a big Joey Dorsey fan, if you can't tell. I just love how much they look the same. I think they signed him just because he looks like Dwight Howard and not because he's good at basketball. So maybe that'll help. But Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough when you look at the standings right now. The top 5 seeds, they're all separated by 5.5 games. Everyone's it's pretty tightly packed. So even just going 500 and, if say he misses 20 games, they go 10-10, which doesn't really sound like it's that bad. There could be several teams that jump the Rockets in that period of time. Just looking at the top 10 in the West, in their last 10 games, every team except for Dallas and Portland are on pace to, go far better than 10-10. So my advice to the Rockets is when you get a chance to play a team like Minnesota or a Brooklyn or, a bad team like that, you can't afford to lose that game. And maybe you hope that when you play an average to above average team, you can win maybe 1 out of 3, and that way you can, if they can stay around 500, they'll be fine. But it's tough being in that conference. There's not a lot of margin for error, so they'll definitely drop a few spots for sure. I'm not sure how far, because there's kind of a big drop off between after the 7th seed from 8 through 10. 8 through 10 are pretty close, but yeah, they could definitely be 7, maybe 8 seed, because the Suns are playing well too. So it's just, they better hope he's not out for too long, or they may be toast.
They may be toast. Let's slide our discussion over to someone who's having a great season. Speaking of toast, I don't know how that relates, but Anthony Davis, the Brow, is having a historically great year. Right now, his PER sits at 31.82. For those of you who don't know, PER is, I guess, like an advanced basketball statistic. Excuse me. And what's the average PER in the league, guys? Do you know?
I think it was at 15.
About 15. So yeah, Anthony Davis is at 31.93, and the greatest season ever recorded was Wilt Chamberlain at 31.82. So he's currently on pace to have the greatest PER season in the league. So what do you think about that? Do you think he should be an MVP candidate? Is he getting enough respect? Kurt, let's start with you.
Oh, he is. First of all, don't even get me started on how attractive he is. He really has a nice look going, and he needs to let the stash guard a little longer, I think. But
well, you know what's surprising? He's like born in '93, so I don't know if he can actually grow a stash.
He's got like a pencil thin one, so it's kind of
okay.
It's like it's on its way to greatness, but it's not there yet. Kind of
Gotcha.
like him. He's ridiculous though. He's shooting over 55% from the field. He's, his statistics every season in every category just keep climbing, averaging 24.5, 10.4 rebounds, and 2.9 blocks. There's just really, you can't really find anything bad to say about this guy, except for the team that he's on. They're a bit of a struggle, but it's tough because his PER and his other stats, they're absolutely ridiculous. But when your team is not probably going to make the playoffs, is it actually viable and reasonable to say that that player is indeed the MVP? Granted, if he wasn't on the team, they would be pretty bad. But basketball, there are only 5 guys on the court. If you have that one guy, just ask Miami. They've had a huge drop off without LeBron, and just ask the Cavs. They're having sure they have more wins than they had last season already. So it depends. Do you judge it by how bad the team would be without that player, or do you just judge it by how well the team does with that player? So depending on which way you look at it. I don't think he has a chance of winning it, unfortunately, just because the team's so bad. But it would be nice. It would be nice to see that he's rewarded for this absolutely incredible season.
Yeah, I kind of echo those thoughts. The Brow, he's been absolutely unreal this year. Just looking at all the advanced statistics with him. And yeah, I agree with you that it's tough in the voters' minds and everything, and the media and everything, to see, he's having a very good year, but the team, if they don't make the playoffs, it's tough to give him the MVP nod. And which, if they finish like 9th or 10th instead of 8th, I don't see how just making the playoffs in the 8th seed bolsters your MVP status as
Yeah.
much as like some people think it does. Like, okay, you won like one or two more games and you're in the playoffs. That means you're deserving of MVP. I don't think that makes much sense to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, if you look at more of the advanced statistics, he leads the league in estimated wins added, which is 15. So,
Wow.
basically they're saying without Anthony Davis, it'd be 15 games worse. Harden's at like, to give you an idea, Harden's at 14.3, and then Curry, it kind of drops off to 11.4.
Wow.
But yeah, and then just all the like the value added stats and everything. I mean, he's just dominating this league, and you just look at the highlights and everything. He just runs the floor, and he's able to get out on the break, and he's just dominating, and it's got to be scary in the next few years how much.
Yeah.
I think he'll just keep getting better and just develop into a Hall of Fame type player for sure. So yeah, it's crazy to think that he's among the best in terms of this efficiency statistic when you look at, Wilt Chamberlain, who played in the 60s, where he averaged, like 30 and like
25, yeah.
against guys like most of the time like not his size, and probably the level of competition wasn't as great, but it's crazy to think that you can, put him on a list with, Michael Jordan's better than Michael Jordan's best season, and Ron in 08, 09 had a really good season. He had 31.67. So yeah, I think he'll continue to destroy, but it's just the Pelicans are tough. So yeah, Rahul, you have anything to add about the Brow?
Yeah. That Wilt Chamberlain season that he had the highest PER. He had 44.8 points per game and 24.3 rebounds per game.
Oh
So
my God.
The fact that Anthony Davis is beating that season in PER is unbelievable. That being said, I don't think he's going to win the MVP, partly because, yeah, his team isn't the best, but also because kind of what you said, J-Rod, at the end, he's going to get better in the next few years. I think the voters realize it. So the point is, if he doesn't win the MVP this year, he's definitely going to win it down the road, And I think that impacts voters' minds, the fact that the guy's going to win it eventually, so they don't feel the pressure to vote for him. If someone was having this season that he's having and he was, maybe 27 or 28 years old, then it's a different story. But for now, it's a great season, but he's not going to get the MVP for it. So we know that the Pellies are struggling a little bit, or they are where they are. Some other teams that are kind of surprisingly struggling right now are the Dallas Mavericks and the Chicago Bulls. So recently, I think Dallas is 0-4 in the last 4 games. They won tonight against Miami, I just saw. And then Chicago is struggling big time, too. They just lost in double overtime to the Lakers last night. So that's obviously surprising. Kurt, what do you think about these teams and kind of what they need to do to correct themselves?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. All these rumors have been coming out about how Rondo is a terrible fit for the Mavericks, and giving up Brandon Wright was a big mistake. But if you look at their last 4 games, as part of their losing streak, it's not like they were losing to the 76ers and the Celtics and the Nets and the Timberwolves. They lost in Houston, they lost in New Orleans, they lost at home against Chicago, and they lost against Memphis. 3 of the losses were within 5 points. They kind of got blown out against Memphis. And things weren't looking great against Miami for the first, half or so. But then they came out and just absolutely handled them. So they're struggling, I guess, in the loss column, but I think they're totally fine. I'm not worried about that team at all. It was interesting to watch. There were a couple times that Rondo tried to drop the ball off to Chandler under the basket, and I don't think Tyson really has any idea when Rondo's going to pass. So guys will still have to get used to that, just having to always be ready, because Rondo's just always willing to fire or pass anywhere, even when it looks like he's just going to take a layup. So I think the familiarity is they're going to keep growing. But I'm not worried about that team at all. I think they'll be totally fine, and it'll just take some time, I guess, to keep gelling together and figuring out exactly who's going to do what. Just kind of a familiarity thing. With the Bulls, man, that team, they're unbelievable. Sometimes you watch them play, and they're just just recently. They beat the Spurs by 23, and then they followed up with a nice win in Dallas, and then they drop an egg against Miami, and then they come back and beat Golden State. Because Golden State's second home loss, they beat them in overtime, and then they lose to the Lakers in overtime. So I think really what it is for them is just inconsistency, and it's interesting because that team's kind of had a total flip-flop. Thibodeau has been known for his just defensive excellence, and that team just competing every night. Even when Derrick Rose was hurt, they were still 4 or 5 seed in the East. Just play their hearts out every night, and their defensive numbers. I think in his first 4 years they were in the top 3 or 4 every year in points per game given up, and this season they're maybe 15th, giving up close to 99.
Yep.
Which is interesting, is that's just not something you'd associate with the Bulls, especially when they, granted Noah's had some injury troubles, but just a team that's so gritty and grinds it out. But their offense is totally flip-flopped too, and went from being very anemic to just now they just have a plethora of options, not only in their starting 5, but off the bench too. They're just kind of loaded on offense, which is just very interesting to think about. But they'll definitely get it together too. It's a long season, and these middle 30-ish games or so till the tail end of the season. They're not terribly important to get hot. You kind of want to be hot going in at the end of the season, which I have a pretty strong feeling that they and Cleveland will be tearing it up by the end of the season. Just so much talent to integrate. This takes a little time. It'll be interesting to see if the Hawks keep it up too. That could be a very interesting Eastern Conference playoff race, but yeah, I'm not worried about them either. They just need more effort, and I think the Mavs just need some more time to gel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of echo Kurt's thoughts. I think both teams I don't think it's concerning. I mean, yeah, they're going through a rough patch, I guess, right now, but I see both teams, not continuing to struggle this much as they have recently. I think with Chicago, it's been injuries plaguing them most of the season. Right now, they're kind of missing Dunleavy and the spacing and the three-point shot provides.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah. So, and then Taj Gibson has been in and out of the lineup, as well as with Noah, and then you obviously have Rose, who's in and out of the lineup too. So I think once they get healthy, which hopefully will be at the end of the year, that they'll be fine, and they'll be close to that top tier of the East when it's all said and done. And then as far as the Mavs, yeah, like you said, I guess Rondo, it's been tough to kind of integrate him into the offense, and where he fits and what his role exactly is. I don't think he should really shoot as much
Ever.
he's averaging like 11 shots a game, which I don't think he needs
Wow.
to do.
Yeah.
That's
And he's
good.
like right at that like 40% level, which isn't very good either. So yeah, I think once he finds out his role, and then the team starts to gel a little more, maybe they get hopefully some better bench production as well. I think they
Yeah.
really do miss that Brandon Wright, and yeah, I just don't see the scoring off the bench is kind of lacking, I think. I'm not sure if maybe Cuban will make a move before the trade deadline, but I feel like they could acquire another player off the bench to help the scoring. But yeah, overall, I'm not concerned with either team, like Kurt said. So Rahul, you have any differing thoughts on any of these teams?
Yeah. Well, I know Kurt really wants them to get Raymond Felton in there, so maybe that could help for the Mavericks. But I think you're right. More than Rondo not being a great fit, I think they miss Brandon Wright. I think he was he was a pretty underrated player. He was like Tyson Chandler's understudy, and there's a
Yeah.
reason that the Mavericks were going after Josh Smith so hard because really now behind Chandler they don't have a good center to take up any minutes. They're looking at Jermaine O'Neal, I know.
Whew.
So I mean, we'll see how that
Yikes.
works out if that works out. But it's what's up?
Is Robert Sacre still on the market? I heard he's,
Yeah.
a pretty solid center.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they would consider like going after Dallenberg. He already played for them, so
Yeah.
maybe he knows some of their system. But like, really, they need a backup center, I think, pretty badly. But yeah, I wouldn't blow it out of proportion. The games they lost were to tough teams. As far as the Bulls, you're right about their identity being kind of different because I think you said they were top three every year before this.
Yeah.
Under Thibodeau. But yeah, this year they're middle of the road, but I think in a way that's almost to be expected because if you look at like their starting five, Noah's a good defender. Butler's a good defender. But then like Derrick Rose he's coming off of injury. He's kind of here and there.
Yeah.
They lost Luol Deng, who is a good defender.
Yeah.
So that takes away from that. And then you throw in Pau Gasol into the starting lineup instead of maybe giving those minutes to Taj Gibson. And Gasol is, he's lanky. He gets his blocks, but he's not a great defender by any means. So it's almost not, to be expected or not like completely out of the ordinary. We'll see what happens when they get a little healthier. But I think for both teams, it's nothing to be too concerned about. So yeah, Kurt, you got anything else to add?
Yeah, actually, I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Gerald Wallace.
Oh, yeah?
He almost pulled off the trillion tonight. Unfortunately, he
Does that
had
pretty frequently, actually.
yeah.
Plays like a solid like 10 to 15 minutes, and comes close like every night.
Yeah, he didn't record anything except for one block in his 7 minutes tonight, which, man, I don't know why he's putting in more. If he put that much effort in to get a block, he could have easily gotten a rebound. So you need to tone that down there, big guy. But he also went -9 in his 7 minutes, so that's just that's the kind of quality night that you're looking for in a bench player. So keep it up, Gerald. I'm looking forward to seeing that trillion soon.
There you go. All right, J-Rod, what do we have? What do we have that's coming up on site for this upcoming week?
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll have the week in review. Rahul will be writing that up, and look out for, I guess, like a newer segment of that. We'll be posting like more like vines and different links, more of the like funny stuff around the NBA and everything. So be on the lookout for that, as well as the weekly preview that we normally write for Sunday. Then heading into next week, I guess, during the week we'll have Kurt has written the first part of the top signature moves in the NBA, 6 to 10. He'll be coming out with his second segment, which will be like moves 1 to 5.
Soon.
And then as well as Quidditch segment, I believe Deacon will have the third segment for that, so be on the lookout for that as well. And then power rankings from V hopefully will be out later in the week as well. It'll be interesting to see how it's moved from last month. And then finally, I guess looking into our podcast we have planned for next week, I believe we'll be doing some All-Star Weekend preview, so kind of looking at the game maybe a little bit more, more so at, I guess, the other stuff like the dunk contest and the three-point contest, so we'll be previewing that and predicting what happens there. Rahul, do you have anything else or any other shout-outs to maybe some of our viewers?
I got a big shout-out. Big shout-out to our one viewer in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Oh, nice.
That was the most random thing, but I saw that. Like, I saw some countries like France, England, Australia, Canada, whatever. But then I saw St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we got a viewer out there. That's pretty legit. So
That's
hopefully
awesome.
he's rich and he can fund us. So yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah, and if you're listening, Mr. Grenadian, I'll say, I'm looking at some pictures online. It looks like it's a pretty beautiful place to go. So if you're interested in housing some people, we will, we'll take our Semih Pro yacht out there, and we'll come pick you up and cruise around the Caribbean. So.
This summer, we're taking our talents to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Yes. Hey, actually, I just looked up where it is. It's actually, it's by Puerto Rico and Cuba and Jamaica and Haiti. So it's a pretty big deal. They're definitely on the map. And thank you to everybody, as always, for listening and checking out our site. And if you haven't, follow us on Twitter. At Semih Pro blog. Hopefully you know how to spell it, but if you don't, SEMIH and then Pro blog. Thanks for listening.
All right, take it easy, everybody.
Yep.